it's your girl Bernie Shanae, and today is my stop for Hear Voices book tour, and I'm going to be doing a book review for The Thing About Home by Rhonda McKnight. And first off, I'm just going to let y'all know I rated this a 5 out of 5 stars, and I'm going to tell y'all why as I get into this book review. So this book is featuring our main character, Casey Black. She is an influencer. She's an influencer for makeup, hair, and fashion. She was also a fashion model until, she became a certain age and she decided not to model anymore. And so she is an influencer located in New York. Her mom is pretty much her manager. And so as we are in the opening scene of this book, she is getting ready and getting prepared for her vow renewal to her husband, Drew. And now, mind you, Casey and Drew, they have been married for 7 months, not 7 months, 7 years. But within those 7 years, they have dealt with a lot. And she has also dealt with loss as far as she had 2 miscarriages as well. And so she hasn't really grieved those losses because she's been masking it with doing so much of social media and posting her entire life in every single minute of her life. And so when the vow renewal was about to begin, Drew, her husband, called her into his room saying he can't do it and that he wanted a divorce. And she's like, why would you do this now when there's 3 million of my followers and we're recording this and everything? Why would you do this? You could have told me this, way before I planned this. Why didn't you tell me this yesterday or day before, whatever? And he was just like, he's tired of it. He's tired of living his life through social media every single day. And that's what she's known, is through social media, because that's what her mom pushed her to do, was through social media. So she was an influencer. She records every single day on a regular basis, and he just had enough. And that's when she broke down on social media and it was just sad and being transparent with them. And she got some crap from them. And, on social media, they're going to be some assholes, unfortunately. And she just couldn't take it anymore. And so she began to do some soul searching. And she realized that she did not know her father's side of the family. Now, mind you, her father is no longer, he passed away months before she was born. And so she felt like maybe this will be a good time for me to get away from social media, get away from everything that I know, and step out of my comfort zone. So she goes to Georgetown, South Carolina, and she meets the Blacks, all the Black family, like from her father's side. That's her last name, Black. And she met her grandmother for the very first time. And when I read that scene, I was just blown away and refreshed by how she was just like, wow, this is my grandmother. And her grandmother was so happy to finally meet her granddaughter that she didn't know she had, it was just one of those things. And Casey was getting to know more about her grandmother and her ancestors and the land that they own in South Carolina and Georgetown. And she was just thrilled with it. And then she got to meet Nigel, who pretty much helped around with the farm and helped with her grandmother. And she had no place to stay, so he had a Airbnb that was available. So she was staying at his house, and they were also getting close and getting to know each other a little bit better. And as she was down there, she was beginning to unfold some family secrets. And I enjoyed this book because there's been a lot of books I've read regarding family secrets and how detrimental it is to your family and to the people after you and the future of your family, because it's like how can I say this? I'm trying to think of it. It's pretty much I can't think of the word right now, but anyways, a cycle. It's like a revolving cycle that's never broken. And so she's getting to know more and more about these secrets, and she wants to know more about her father and what happened to her father, especially when he passed away, because her mother told her one version. But I always tell people that there's always 2 sides to a story. And she got the side from her grandmother. She already listened to her mother's side of what happened to her dad as he was drunk and and that's what happened, and he died in the car accident. But the truth was that he was having an argument with his brother, Mark, which is Casey's uncle, who also passed away. and she began to talk about their argument and who was involved, and her grandmother also let her know that her mother was the core of this argument, and how Mark fell in love with Victoria and all this other stuff. And Casey had no idea, because her mother said that she, that her dad was the one that got in the car accident when her mom was involved in it. And so that blew Casey's mind. She's like, why would my mother lie to me about this? And like, how come? Like, and then she confronted her mom about it. She just says, I wanted to protect you and stuff. They didn't like me. They blamed me for your grandmother blamed me for Matthew's death, and they just didn't like me and all this other stuff. And from her grandmother's perspective, there were some things that she felt Victoria shouldn't have done, as far as when Matthew had passed away in the car accident, when he died. And so it was just bad ending for both of them, for her grandmother and for her mom, Victoria. And Casey, I feel like she came to the realization that, and she had this talk with her mother saying like, yes, I'm always going to be your daughter, but I do have other family. You made it seem like I didn't have other family. It seemed like you didn't. And it seemed like at the time when she was raising her, she didn't give her that option to get to know her father's side. And I really felt for that, like her mother, she took her, pretty much she was a single mom, Casey's mother, Victoria. And, Casey was her world. And Casey understood that as well, but she wanted her mom to understand that she also had other family, and that she wanted to have that opportunity to get to know them, regardless of what relationship that they had prior to Casey being born. I feel like, Casey should have still had that option to find out for herself about her father's side, not from her mother, because like I said, there's always two sides to a story. And like I said, Casey said that she will always be there for her mother. She will always love her mother. And there was also some romance in this book as well, as between Nigel and Casey. And I felt it was so refreshing, because they had so many things in common. And yet, when she first met him, she didn't really bring up much about the, as her being an influencer and a model and stuff like that. She gradually was telling him some things until the very end, when a tragic moment had happened in the book, where I was in tears about that one moment. And I just felt everything when I read that chapter. I was like, wow. And my husband was looking at me. He was like, are you okay? I was like, yeah, I'm fine. There's just this one part in the book that just got me. It touched me, and it made me feel it made me go back into that moment of when I found out the news about a loved one. So it's just like, whoo. So it definitely got me. But it also talks about ancestors and how we get a different point of view. So we get Odessa, who is Casey's great grandmother, and also talks about her great grandfather Elijah, and how they were able to have this land in Georgetown, South Carolina, how her ancestors were able to buy it. And he talks more about Elijah and how he was enslaved, and Odessa was enslaved as well. And it talks about Elijah and how he was looking for his mother because she was sold, and he was trying to look for her until one day they found out what had happened to her. So it has these family trees. It has the Black family tree and the Conway family tree. The Conway family tree is Odessa, which is Casey's great grandmother. And then we have the Black family, which goes into Elijah Black and everything. So there we have it. So we have a family tree of when her ancestors were enslaved in a plantation in South Carolina. But I felt so proud of Casey at the end of this book, because she was trying to find her way. And there was some quotes in this book that were my absolute favorite, which I wanted to share with you all. So the first one was, the only thing keeping you from life you want is you. And I thought this, like when I read that, I'm thinking about myself, like, if I want this life, I can get it. It's just, I got to work hard for it, and it's there for me. It's just, I think I'm fearful about it on what I need to do. And I think that's, one thing that I love about this book is that you learn a few things and you start to search yourself and realize like, hey, I need to listen to this. Like, I can live the life that I want. I just have to take that leap of faith. And that's what Casey ended up realizing about herself. And then the next quote, which I put the page number in here. Let me see if I can find it. It says, this is my great grandmother Odessa's words also hovered in the peripheral of my mind. The women before you could only dream their dreams. They hoped for a better day for their daughters and all the women down their family line. And that's what Casey realized. She wanted to live her dream. And she finally rejected the life she didn't want and instead embraced the life that she wanted to have. And that included Nigel, because they had this connection, especially after she realized about her husband, Drew, who she finally got divorced from him and realized that he was cheating on her and so much other things, and that her mother knew about it. That also was mind-blowing to me. I was so pissed at her mom about that, of knowing about Drew and his other relationships outside of her, her daughter's marriage, but we're not gonna get into that. But I really felt like Casey found herself when she went to South Carolina. And there was a moment of weakness where, her mother was like, oh, we got this contract, you can go back to social media, yada, yada, yada. And that was when Casey dealt with loss. And Nigel was telling her, like, hey, every time something bad happens, it seems like you go running. And that is true. That she did that. She went running home, to South Carolina, of what happened with her and Drew. Now she's running away after, dealing with a loss. So I think she started to realize what she truly wanted in life, and that she wanted to be a photographer and she wanted to do a documentary about her family. And then I also had another quote, which was at the very end of the book, which I would like to share. What it says, I managed to excite and amuse the man at the same time. Nigel kissed me until I was silly enough to believe in love again, but this time I understood it. Love wasn't supposed to save me or validate me or prove anything to anyone. Love had one job, and that was to add to the joy I already had. I would never overwork it again. And that was the last words of the book. And I was just, it was beautiful. The writing was beautiful. I love the setting. I love the whole family dynamic, and her getting to know her aunts and the Black family, and that her family in down south, they had everyone had a job for something. And even if it was to fix something, she's like, oh, we have a family member that can help you with that. So it's just, I just loved it. I love how family oriented it was. And it made me think of my family in Georgia, in Moultrie, Georgia, and how I feel like there's some things that I still want to know about my ancestors. And I know that the answers are down there. It's just, I have to be willing to take that leap of faith and realize that the life that I want, I know I can grasp it. It's there in my grasp. I just have to be willing to take that life that I truly want for myself. So I really, really enjoyed this book. Like I said, I gave it a 5 out of 5 stars, and I highly recommend it. But I also would love to read the author note, which is at the very end of the book, which it says, this book stretched me. I've always loved history, but I did not know much about Georgetown prior to doing research for this novel. I chose it simply because of Black River, as it is situated in the heart of the Gullah Geechee corridor and rose to prominence due not only to its indigo and rice production, but its unique political gains during Reconstruction. Every word in my book about the politics and elections is true. I knew I made the right choice. I sold this book to my editor as a contemporary story about Cassie Black. I was halfway through the first draft when Odessa Conway Black spoke to me. She woke me at 2 o'clock in the morning with the words, I have something to say. What was a novel about Casey and her grandfather, Eddie Black, became a story about Casey, Ida, and Odessa Black, a story about the women. I am glad I'm not a heavy sleeper. There are some parts of this book that are based on snippets from my own family history. For example, my ancestors' proximity to Black River, the purchase of the land, the tragic disappearance of Earl, and the use of herbs for medicinal purposes. My grandfather, Eddie McKnight, was a local farmer and healer who died shortly after his 100th birthday. But much of the story is straight from my imagination. Things that I know could have happened, probably happened, and situations I hope happened for my family and others who look like me. The earthquake of 1886 was a real tragedy, and the advertisement seeking lost relatives after freedom was a hopeful and painful system utilized by many freed people for decades. I am just 3 generations from emancipation, with my great-grandfather Elijah McKnight having been born enslaved and great-grandfather George Wilson probably born enslaved. My ancestors' sacrifices are never far from my mind. My family survived. They created legacy. Love, character, and faith endured. Once I started writing the historical chapters, it was my goal to dignify them by rooting this story in truth, while sprinkling it with what could have been possible because they dared to dream of a better day for themselves and me. So, there you have it. I wanted to end that with that author note just to give y'all an idea of how great and special this book really is. But yeah, like I said, I'm gonna say it again, I gave it a 5 out of 5 stars because this is such an amazing and beautiful book and well written, and it deserves its flowers. But that is it. That is my book review. I really hope you enjoyed it, and I hope you all are staying healthy and staying safe. See ya.